The majority of us go through the educational system and life and never learn what's right for us. Maybe it's time for you to create your own definition of success. And that's where we come in. This is the SUCCESSology Podcast, here to supplement the traditional education system and life with real-world skills and knowledge, helping you create your own definition of success. SUCCESSology. Here's your host, Rajdeep Singh.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SUCCESSology Podcast. Today, we are chatting with Kristel Bauer. Kristel has an extensive background in healthcare. However, after years of practicing traditional medicine, a loved one's stage 4 cancer diagnosis awakened a burning desire in her to explore and examine what wellness truly means. And she founded Live Greatly to share her sort of findings about how to best achieve optimal health in mind and soul and in body to attain success. Now, she is also an advocate for employee and student wellness and has created an 8-week online course, the links to which will be in the description. And she also has her own podcast, which is Live Greatly, which is actually a top 100 self-improvement podcast. So the links, again, will be in the description. So I'm very excited to have her on the show. And without further ado, let's begin the show. Hi, Kristel. I hope you and your family are doing well and keeping safe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. You know, we are all doing well, thankfully, and healthy. So, no complaints on my end. I'm excited to be here to talk with you today.
Perfect. I do apologize for bringing up certain things from the past, but, I personally believe that we find a true self when we're at our lowest of lows. So when you got the news of your loved one's diagnosis, stage 4 cancer, why did you go from practicing, say, traditional medicine to, say, starting Live Greatly?
Yeah, it was a process. So it was my mom, and she is, she's doing okay, thank God. So it's been quite a journey for sure. But I think anytime you go through those big life challenges, right, there's always questions that come up. There's soul searching that happens. There's awakening that happens. And at the time, I was actually a stay-at-home mom. I had been home with my kids for 6 years. And what happened is that experience really got my healthcare brain starting to kind of kick back into gear and really thinking about what can we do? What are all of the resources out there to help my mom, to help support my family, and to help support myself through the process and through the challenges that we were going through as a family. And I started to explore integrative medicine. We went and saw a really wonderful physician who practiced in integrative medicine, and we left that appointment and I felt hopeful. I felt like, wow, there's more that we can do than just the traditional. Like, we were going to go down the traditional route. My mom was going to do whatever the doctors recommended as far as surgery and radiation and medicine, etc. But I realized that there was also a big mind component. And I really was very focused on how can we kind of optimize mindset? How can we, incorporate spirituality into healing? I then became a Reiki master. I started to, look into that. And I went back into practicing medicine. And I'm a physician assistant. So I went back into integrative psychiatry and functional medicine. And I really learned a ton in that arena. And then after practicing there for, a couple of years, I had also been getting my fellowship in integrative medicine. Like, again, this whole process just sparked that desire in me to learn more. And I decided I really wanted to share what I've learned on a wider scale. It was, I really enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed speaking to larger groups. And so I launched my business the beginning of the year, my podcast and consulting and doing all sorts of fun stuff. But really my goal is just to empower people to reclaim their health and to realize that we do have more control over our well-being than I think most of us have been led to believe.
Absolutely. The story is absolutely inspiring. And the fact that your mom made it, I'm really happy. So wish her the best from our end as well.
Thank you so much.
The concept about your mind being responsible for your well-being is quite powerful. There's a topic called neuro-linguistic programming, And I was listening to a podcast and they mentioned, people, the mind is so powerful that you can give yourself cancer and you can take it away. It's that powerful, which not a lot of people actually believe, or, they're still starting to figure things out.
Yeah, I think that arena is, it's fascinating. I think I like to focus more on the positive aspects of things. I think there's so much fear out there already that for me, it's more about, okay, how can you start to feel more empowered? How can you start to break free of those limiting beliefs, which have been there for a while? So like with this whole process of self-discovery on my end, and the integrative medicine fellowship and learning about Reiki and starting meditation. And really, I practiced all of these things on myself, learning more about myself throughout this whole journey. But it's really been about, I think, developing more self-love and learning to love yourself no matter what you've gone through in your past, and have more compassion for yourself, to take more time for yourself, to not feel guilty about taking care of yourself, and not always having to be about pleasing everyone else, about really what resonates with you, tuning into yourself, learning about yourself. So I think the mind, as you said, it's extremely powerful, but there are certain practices that you can do to break free of whatever self-talk has been maybe going through your mind that doesn't serve you anymore. So for me, mindfulness has been really wonderful for that. Mindfulness practices, journaling, and meditation, those have been really game-changing for me.
Now, given that this is only a 20-minute interview, so we won't be able to discuss all of the things that you mentioned. So I particularly would like to focus on the nutrition and meditation, because I think if you got those two down, then you can take care of the rest. Because mindfulness, again, and if you have mindfulness in life, I've started discovering this recently because I've been involved in 3-4 different things, big things. So now things are kind of messy, and that's when you realize you need some time for yourself. And when you do that, the rest of the things, like your your physical aspect, your social, your emotional, automatically falls in line. So on that note, you recently interviewed Kelly Springer on your podcast, and you had a very in-depth and long interview about nutrition and how you can help, how it can sort of help us to optimize health. It was very insightful. So with your sort of years of experience, what is your biggest advice when it comes to nutrition?
Well, I think a lot of it starts with awareness. So tuning into where you're at, and nutrition is very individual. It's interesting. I've been talking a lot about this subject. I'm going to be speaking at a local university next month on the gut-brain connection. I just had Naveen Jain on my podcast, who has the company Biome. So they do personalized gut. They look at your gut microbiome and make recommendations for personalized nutrition. So I think this is such a big topic, but what I'm learning more and more is that each individual is going to have different needs. So if, for me personally, I really enjoy a plant-based diet. I've been pescatarian for a period of time. Now I eat meat once in a while, but that makes me feel good. Whereas someone else, they might have different needs. Someone else may do better off of gluten, or they may do better off of dairy, or, there's different things that may resonate with people's biology. And really, I think it's checking in with yourself to see how you feel after you eat certain foods, because your body is always giving you feedback. And a lot of times we're just not paying attention. So if you really are able to tune into yourself and check in, I think kind of more intuitively, you'll know what resonates, what doesn't resonate. That said, kind of blanketly, you can say, crank up plant-based foods, crank up your fruits and vegetables. That's, I think, a very safe statement to say. And then, lower inflammatory foods. So lower, the fried foods and, the French fries and pizza and high sugar and stuff like that, because inflammation is linked to mental health struggles and physical struggles. So generally lower inflammatory foods, crank up whole foods. And I think that's a really good place to start. But then you get into the fine tuning, because everybody then might have some different needs based on their bodies.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was doing my research, and I was like, people would be thinking the podcast is called Successology, and why are you talking about nutrition? But
Mhm.
I think most of us, I think, overlook that we are what we eat. The famous quote, as it says. So having the right nutrition is like the foundation which your success should be built on. So, again, so you prefer Atkins. There are a lot of diet trends
Mhm.
when it comes to
Plant-based.
nutrition. Sorry.
I prefer plant-based.
Oh, plant-based. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, my bad. So yeah, plant-based, and similarly, there are so many diet trends such as paleo, keto, Mediterranean, and then the DASH diet. So do you advise people explore as much as they can, or is there something specific that you think works on a general basis?
Yeah, again, I think lowering inflammatory foods, it would be something I would say generally. And Dr. Andrew Weil, who was the head of my fellowship, my integrative medicine fellowship, has a really wonderful anti-inflammatory diet.
Mhm.
And so that's also something that, I like to follow. But I do think that depends on what you're trying to address,
Mhm.
and it depends on your individual needs. So I am fascinated again by like some of the new testing that looks at like your personalized nutrition. I haven't tried it personally, but I think that's really fascinating, as things continue to develop. But in general, lower inflammatory foods, crank up, antioxidant filled plant-based foods is really where I'm at.
Mhm.
But that said, then you look at other people might recommend keto,
Yeah.
for weight loss. And there's all these different diets out there. But I think for me, the anti-inflammatory diet is
Mhm.
where it really resonates with me.
It resonates with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to nutrition, again, I said, people overlook how important it is. So in that notion, there's, the intermittent fasting diet where you eat in a restricted window. And I was doing it in uni, and the only thing you drink, say, when you're fasting is coffee or some tea. And the benefits of it on your productivity personally are immense. So do you have any experience when it comes to intermittent fasting?
So we had a presentation on that for my fellowship. They presented some research, some of the different diets, and the more extreme cases, like where you were going, days. That I think is I avoid the extreme.
Mhm.
But where I do think that there's some relevant, recommendations is really looking at like lengthening that fasting time overnight. So trying to not eat like before bed. I think that's wise, right? And trying to get like 13 hours, but at least like 12 to 14 hours of
Mhm.
fasting overnight from, your dinner to breakfast. I think that there's, good research to show that that's beneficial, that our body's going to need that time. What's really interesting too is what time you eat also impacts you. So it's not just like not eating for this period of time. If you're not eating for that period of time during the day, that's going to impact you differently than not eating during that chunk of time at night. So kind of our metabolic clocks impact our hormones and all different, all sorts of stuff. But I do see relevance for, again, the evening fasting. I think there was some research like with a little bit more extensive intermittent fasting, but I haven't seen enough to say one way or another.
True. So I think when it comes to diet, I think a lot of people face this issue, and I personally face it because I know nutrition is the most important thing over the long run. So if you take care of nutrition, you've taken care of 50-60% of the entire the important things, right? It'll help you keep your energy levels up. It'll help you reach your desired weight. And I found this. I have this end goal in mind. I know what weight I want to be, so I follow a certain diet. But what happens is after like a day or two of being on the diet, you sort of go back to your old ways of eating, which is say eating inflammatory foods, eating stuff that you shouldn't eat. So I'm kind of confused. So why does that happen? And is there a way around it?
You know, we're habitual beings, right? So we're all set in our habits, and it takes time to break free of habits. Another thing which is really interesting, is, we all have different gut microbiomes. There's different bacteria that are making up our gut microbiomes. And, that also can cause certain cravings. So if you're used to eating certain foods, it's possible that the gut bacteria in your gut that are used to those certain foods are causing more intense cravings. So I think really there's a bigger picture here. But I would say some simple things you can do is just to really prepare the space for success, which would be having foods around that you want to eat, or I shouldn't say you want to eat, having foods around that you're trying to guide yourself towards eating more of, and just really trying to keep the other foods out of the house. And mindfulness is a really wonderful practice for this, because a lot of times that the snacking and all that, it's if we're not present, it's like you're doing it and you're not even really thinking about it. It's just like out of habit. So the more you build up a mindfulness practice, mindful eating, you're noticing all the sensations while you're eating, the texture, the smells, you're taking your time, you don't have your phone with you, you're fully present. That also, I think, could be really helpful for developing some new healthier habits with eating.
True. It's very interesting, the thing you said about autopilot, you being habitual to your habits, right? And there's actually research on, that your entire, say 90 to 95% of your thoughts are on this autopilot mode. As a result, your actions follow suit. So, there's research on the autopilot, and the way to get out of it is being mindful. So when it comes to mindfulness or meditation, as I mentioned again, that it is, I think, in my personal opinion, one of the most important things you can do on a daily basis. So I've been practicing it on and off. However, I told you, I recognize the importance of mindfulness. So I'm going to assume that I'm a total beginner and I want to start incorporating mindfulness into my daily routine. But I think before we discuss that, what's more important is what are some of the benefits of mindfulness that can sort of help individuals attain success?
So the thing about mindfulness, it's really you're being in the present moment, and that's really all we have. We have this moment, and it's really kind of, I don't know, I think sad to think that you miss out on that. I've missed out on that. We all have missed out on this present moment because we're not fully here, where our thoughts are somewhere else. So it really is about training your brain to be present, which really will lead to a more fulfilling life. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, those types of feelings, it can come from focusing on things from the past or fearing things that have not happened and likely will never happen, future based. So it's really bringing your thoughts and your attention back to the present moment. And it's having a level of awareness about your thoughts without attachment to them. So this is not something that I am an expert in doing. I am still learning and I still struggle with this. It's something that it's definitely a work in progress in my life, trying to build more mindfulness practices. But I do find that when I am present, I'm happier. I feel more at peace. I feel more relaxed. I feel more joyful. So it's just, I think for me, having that intention for myself. And then if I find myself starting to feel more anxious or feel more stressed for whatever reason, I typically can tie it to my mind was somewhere else. It was creating stories that probably will never happen or reflecting on things that I can't control that have happened in the past. Mm-hmm. So I think that recognition of we're creating our own suffering, really, with allowing our thoughts to go to all these places that don't serve us, helps anchor you back to the present moment, using your five senses. Again, what do you see? What do you smell? If you're eating something, what do you taste? What can you touch? All of that. And recognizing sensations in your body. The more you do that, and you can put it in with a meditation practice, mindful walking, body scans, I think the more our brain patterns can start to support that.
Mm-hmm. True. I mean, as you said, I personally believe no one's an expert when it comes to meditation, because it's something that there's no end to it. It's like a journey, right? There's no destination to mindfulness. But with your sort of your experience and you working with professionals and advising them on achieving wellness, say if there's any beginner's guide 101, what would that be? So how can we start mindfulness, say, from tomorrow? or from right now?
I would say to start meditating for 5 minutes. Keep it really simple. And when I say meditating, I mean sitting in a quiet space and anchoring into your breath. So just noticing your inhale, your exhale. And really the goal is just to focus on your breath. So it's really about like training our focus and training our attention. And you're going to notice thoughts are going to come and they're going to try and like pull you in, like, think about me, think about me. But it's really the practice is not following those thoughts, coming back to your breath. So if you do that for 5 minutes, that really can induce a sense of peace. And then you can build off of that and you can do it for longer periods of time. So that would be a good like official practice. But then it's about through the day, I also would pick like one time, whether it's while I'm brushing my teeth, while I'm doing the dishes, while I'm making my lunch, whatever, pick one time that you want to be fully mindful, meaning like you're paying attention, you're in the present moment. And I think that's a really good place to start. And then you can build off of that and start incorporating it more into, your entire life.
True. From say normal meditation, you can just start incorporating in when you're walking. Walking
Yep.
meditation is extremely important as well. I think I was reading a book. It's called A Guide to Mindfulness. It's on Amazon. I'll put the links. And they talk about, say, just by having a 20-minute practice, you'll make progress. But the whole point of mindfulness is to incorporate it into your daily life. So you're mindful from the moment you get up to the moment you fall asleep. And walking meditation is, something that helps. So, I was thinking about something. My mind's so hazy right now. I don't know why. I think, with the years of experience, I've done that. Yeah. So, if there's one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
I would say really to develop practices to help develop self-love. It sounds like really basic, but it can change your life. So really trying to think about like, how can I love myself more? And it sounds, again, like really simplistic, but I think a lot of the struggles that we face come down to, for whatever reason, we're blocking that. We're not fully loving ourselves, or maybe there's been experiences in your past or regrets or who knows, but it's really like letting that in and starting to develop that relationship with yourself. So how can you develop that relationship with yourself is a question I would recommend asking. For me personally, again, meditation has been really wonderful for this, spending time in nature, where just calming my mind, and journaling, counseling is also really wonderful for people who need more support. But really working to love yourself, and nutrition we talked about, that's a way you can really take care of your body and your mind. And that I think will then show up in all areas of your life, your relationships, your career, your health, all of it.
True. It's such a good advice because, people, I think we should realize that the path that people say success, you have to take a holistic approach to success. It can't be you're just chasing, say, success in terms of monetary benefits and you let go of and this is what happened to me when I was in India. I was quarantining alone because of the COVID situation, and I got involved in the podcast and a couple of other things. As a result, you let go of the diet, you let go of mindfulness. Even though I had those practices, it's very, very easy because there's so many distractions in life to let go of them. But I think if we have the end goal in mind, then things will be a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's really, well said. And one thing that I still remember, I had this wonderful mindfulness teacher in my integrative medicine fellowship, and he was talking to us about mindfulness, and he said, "Just begin again. Like each moment, it's a new opportunity. Oh, you like you said, you kind of lost it. That's okay. Just begin again." So it's always kind of this continual just beginning again, which is our life of always learning and evolving, right?
True. I read Mark Metry's, he had it on his Instagram saying, self-development isn't a linear path. Sometimes you're up in certain things and sometimes you're down in certain things. But you shouldn't let go of the entire progress just because you're down in one aspect. And, that's pretty much it. So
Yeah.
once again, thank you so much for your time and coming on to the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the SUCCESSology Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcast and share it with a friend. That would help too. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Raj on his personal LinkedIn at Rajdeep Singh, on Instagram at Rajdeep.1997, on Instagram at SUCCESSology.podcast, and on YouTube at SUCCESSology Podcast, helping you create your own definition of success. Make your own path to get there quicker. Until next time, this is the SUCCESSology Podcast signing off.